Hello, world, and welcome to episode 3 of Keeping Karlsson's Timmy's Gang, the hot new show sweeping the nation, where we play a silly little game on an app that belongs to a Canadian coffee chain to win imaginary rewards points and win free coffee and donuts. And like Timbits listening, hopefully you know they call donut holes is another name for them. Breakfast sandwiches. You can get anything at Tim Hortons, and that's the goal here, is to correctly predict the goal scores night in, night out in the NHL so that we can get things at Tim Hortons for free. Some people would say that's all they're worth. I'm going to introduce my guest first, and with a question. Ryan, welcome to the show. You are Opera Downey, or Ryan Downey, on our patrons-only Discord server. You've been a listener of the show for a while. Where would you value Tim Hortons products as you play this game? Like, are you really excited to get rewards points and get things from Tim Hortons that you would have definitely paid for anyway? Or is this all just gravy for you, whatever points you do accumulate?
It's an interesting question. I'll first thank you for having me, and shout out to the Timmy's gang out there, Edward and Ben and everyone out there. It's a lot of fun to play this little game with you guys. When it comes to Tim Hortons, it's not good or bad. It's just kind of fine. Where I'm from in Newfoundland, we didn't really have 10 years ago, and I left 8 years ago. So we're really exposed to a higher quality of coffee, really. So it was really kind of Tim Hortons or McDonald's. But, it's not something I'll get every day, but especially during roll-up, I like to indulge. And so this kind of crossing over into the roll-up time is very kind of fortuitous for me.
For anyone unfamiliar with roll-up, who's still watching, because even though you're unfamiliar with Tim Hortons and don't have the app, you're still watching anyway, because we will talk about hockey players and their fantasy hockey fortunes and their likelihood of scoring goals in just a few moments. A game where you buy a coffee and you roll up the rim on the coffee cup, and it would tell you if you won a prize. You'd often get a free donut. Now it's you roll up through the app too. But Ryan, is it true that you can not lose? Every roll up is a win? Real ad now. Now we're doing officially a Tim's infomercial.
I mean, this is branded content for Tim Hortons now. It is digital now. It's a bit less fun, and it really depends on your definition of a win. Sometimes I've redeemed my reward points because, unlike you and Ben, I have been redeeming the points for a coffee here and there just to, we're in the pandemic, get myself out of the house for a bit of a walk sometimes. Sometimes you redeem it and you do you swipe up, like you're on an Instagram story or whatever, and it just plays this little animation and a ding, and you could win 5 Tim's points, which is nothing. It's where you say it's a 7th of a coffee to get 10, it's right. A 14th of a coffee that you win.
Good math.
So yeah, it's not great, but whatever. It's something to do.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you don't mind, so I guess what you're saying is everyone's a winner, but you barely win each time. So every coffee you buy, you're 1/14th closer to getting another coffee, which I guess is better than nothing. You've technically won something. And so I think now might be a good time for us to actually go in and see how we're doing with points. So I'm just going to pull up my phone here, and you can see on the screen. All right, navigating. So, I thought I definitely hit last night. Results are pending. Are your results in from yesterday, Ryan?
Very interesting. Well, Brian, unfortunately, my results are in the sense that I pulled a Brian from episode 1 of Timmy's Gang, and I was so sure about my picks, and I thought I locked them in and hit submit, but I didn't, and I went 2 for 3 with Robertson, and I can't remember who the other one who hit was. I think it might have been my third slate, because I also had Martin Yachis, and it didn't hit.
You must have had Garnet Hathaway in your third box.
So yeah, I didn't get to hit yesterday, and I guess technically no one has hit yet, even though we know we did.
Yeah. Okay. So I is this a known bug? Am I the only one whose results are still pending? Do you know?
I don't know. Is there anyone in the YouTube chat who can maybe help us out? I'm not actually there right
Well,
now.
Sir
Maybe I should
Fonty,
get there.
hey, for you're 3 for 3 now with coming to our Timmy's Gang shows. I'm sorry you missed us. I think we're probably. I know yesterday I definitely hinted that there was never going to be another episode, but here we are. There's probably going to be another one tomorrow too, so you can hang on until I just don't schedule it ahead of time. So I guess now would be a good time to. Well, I was going to say talk about how many points. Like, what do you? I'm up to 680 points total. Have you how are you doing in the game?
I did the math yesterday. Yeah, I did the math, and I think like right now I'm at 240, but I've spent obviously I've redeemed like 2 coffees and a sausage belt, I think. So I think that takes me to somewhere in the late 500s, 560. So I'm not quite in the upper echelon of a fantasy hockey expert like yourself, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, well, I think I don't think it's more about quantity rather than quality with the Tim's Hockey Challenge. The longer you play, gives you a heads gives you a head up on the competition. I don't think it's a game of terrible skill, although we all did answer that very difficult skill testing question when we first registered to play. So how about let's get to it without any further banter here. Kevin's in the chat. Oh yeah, Kevin mentioned that yesterday McAvoy scored. So
yes, and that was the one that I hit on. It was McAvoy.
There you go. So I mean, you get credit from me for hitting on McAvoy. Congratulations. Let's see if you can pull 3 out of 3 today.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, versus your 2 out of 3 from yesterday. So if we look through the first box, and I haven't looked yet. This is my first time opening it today. Oh, thanks, Sir Fonty in the chat telling me that still pending results for you too. Okay, so I'm in the first box, and I'm just going to rhyme off the names that catch my eye, Ryan, and you can let me know what you think. Nazem Kadri, Nazem Kadri, Andrew Manjapani, Val Nichushkin, I guess is pretty hot, Clayton Keller, Sean Monahan, and I think that's where my interest ends. I guess I could throw Wayne Simmons out there, but I don't know. I saw that Alex Galchenyuk is going to get some power play time tonight, and I'm not sure if that's going to be in place of Simmons or in place of Thornton, who are both, I think, competing now for top 6 time, which they were in the top 6, and then Galchenyuk came along. Ryan, who do you have your sights on here?
Yeah, it's they really aren't giving us much to work with in this first slate. It might be one of the worst ones I've seen the entire at the bad goaltend. Nursed each other here with Buffalo versus Philadelphia. And you also have Minnesota going up against San Jose. So those are interesting kind of matchups, but I really don't see anyone that stands up. When you have Nicholas Aube-Kubel and Bugstad and Donato and Ian Cole further down the line as your best options, that's kind of a problem. So I think the one that stands out to me is one that you said. Nazem Kadri stands out. He's got 1 goal in his last 6, 17 shots over the same period. And you think we're having a bit of a connection issue.
Definitely. I'm
not sure if that's affecting anything.
We're going to push through
it. But Nazem Kadri stands out. Push right through here. So yeah, Nazem Kadri, 1 goal in his last 7. I think using the Dave Betton metric of DUE, I think it's about time for him to convert for us. There's also Nichushkin, who you said, who's super hot right now. He's got 3 goals in his last 6 and 12 shots over the same. One that I really like is Clayton Keller, too. And I know that there were people who were saying that they might wait for the reroll. I think that that's totally valid. And for those who maybe aren't aware, I don't know if we've mentioned the reroll as much on the Timmy's Gang episodes, but you could wait until that first match is over, and then you might luck into someone like Miller or Marchessault or someone in the later game. And I think that that's a perfectly valid play, as long as you remember to hit submit. I think that's important.
Yeah, it's important to make sure you actually go back in and make your choices and when the time's appropriate. And a reroll is decent, although I don't see. So who are the early games that would get rolled out? So Flyers, Sabres, there's nobody here. I guess it would take out your chance of getting Thornton or Simmons or Mikheyev, and then you could just hope that there are some better options. Although, honestly, I don't see, maybe Dustin Brown would show up in the first box. I'm gonna go for it here with my first pick, and I'm like, I feel like Sean Monahan should be a legit choice here that I'm excited to see, but I'm just not. So I'm looking to Nazem Kadri against Adin Hill tonight. That's appealing. And I'm also looking to Clayton Keller against the Avs. So someone from that game. Clayton Keller has 3 goals in his last 6 games and is taking about 2 shots a night over that stretch, which I like. And as we talked about on the last episode of Keeping Karlsson, Clayton Keller has like some wild numbers lately. He's got 24 points in his last 25 games. So he's involved offensively, which I like to see. And then Nazem Kadri, well, we talked about him a little bit on another episode of Timmy Gangs. I'm just pulling up his stats now and seeing that Nazem Kadri, I see what you say about him being due. He's got 1 goal and no assists in his last 7 games, but has steadily taken between 2 and 6 shots a night. So I think I'm going to bank on Adin Hill giving up a goal before, I assume, Philip Grubauer is getting the start tonight. So I'm going to go with Nazem Kadri. Is that it? So are we agreed on that?
We are agreed on that. I think Nazem Kadri is my guy just because of the DUE factor in the shots, as well as the fact that Adin Hill could let up a stinker today. And I have a strict no Calgary rule, so that would take Sean Monahan out for me.
Let me tell you about my strict no Calgary rule. It all started a few years ago, in Tier 1 of the Cupful, when I drafted. So I lost to Dave in a couple key matchups, or 1, maybe 2 key matchups a few years ago, the year he won the championship. Stream Scheme Dave, for anybody not listening, Keeping Karlsson presents this show. I don't have a quick link for you handy, but you could go to keepingkarlsson.com and there's a link over there. So Dave had Gaudreau and Monahan and Giordano in that season where that top line with Lindholm was just going insane. They destroyed me. So the next season, I'm like, I'm going to get them this time. And so I got them and they were terrible. They wrecked my year. And then the next season, I'm like, I'm not going to do it. And I still ended up with, I think I ended up with Gaudreau and Giordano, and I ended up trading one, but it was too late. Like, I still couldn't save my season. And then this year, somehow, I ended up drafting Giordano again and trading for Monahan, which is just, I can't quit these Flames who just disappoint me time after time after time. So while I did sort of look at Mangiapane and be like, oh, I think he's playing with Gaudreau and Giordano, or Gaudreau and Monahan, it was not interesting to me to see him there, because I just don't know Calgary will ever score, especially against the one and only Thatcher Demko, who's just been so good.
It's not happening. I mean, spoiler alert, the third slate is just awful, and the best option is on the Calgary Flames, so we might have to kind of walk it back a little. I fortunately I drafted Monahan this year too, and I got out from under him at the coaching change, and I have never looked back.
Okay. Yeah, I hope. I pledge for the 3rd consecutive year to next year never have any Calgary Flames on my roster, but we'll see how that turns out. I'm just pulling up Adin Hill's number because we did just mention he did have a 34 save shutout against San Jose in his last outing, but before that he's been very average. Like, he started his year with 14 saves in about 1 period of work. That's bookended with his most recent game where he stopped 34 out of 34 against San Jose. And his other games, he has an .899 save percentage. So that's somebody I would like my Tim's choice to be going up against, even though like he could do better tonight. Let's take a look at this second box. Sure. And you mentioned, by the way, that the third box is bad. We're gonna make it entertaining, I hope. So stick around for box 3. Let's focus on box 2. So I'm gonna take a look now at who interests me as I scroll through. Really at a loss. This is like for a box 2 that featured, as Ben Burnett said on yesterday's show, cheat code Jason Robertson. This is a bad box today. I'm looking at, I guess, Kevin LeBanc. Is he the only option? I mean, I could go Provorov. I don't like to go with a defenseman in my second box here, but I don't know that I have another option. Is there someone I'm missing here, Ryan, that you gave some real consideration to?
Not really. I mean, I do think it's either LeBanc or Provorov. The other one that sticks out to me anytime I see him on a list is obviously Morgan Riley, but it's Morgan Riley with one goal that happened on March 1st. And that's his only goal in March and a very low shot volume. So I don't feel great about that being my Timmy's pick. Normally, I go for Kevin LeBanc in this spot because he always finds himself in this second slate. And certainly he'd be an okay bad. He is goalless in his last eight. So again, the DUE factor is in play. 19 shots over the same period, but 9 shots in his last 2 games. And he is kind of interesting for that reason. He's shooting a lot. But someone else who is shooting a lot is Ivan Provorov, who has 23 shots in his last 4 games. Now, albeit against Buffalo, New York Rangers, and New Jersey. But fortunately, tonight is again against Buffalo. And I really don't think that they're going to win tonight. I think that they're just going to be the losingest team or the winningless team in NHL history. So I think it's either going to be LeBanc or Provorov. And for me, I hate cheering for a second defenseman because usually you do have to go with that defenseman in the third slate. So I like to have a forward here, but I think I would go Provorov here just because of those shots. It's mind-blowing.
Crazy shots. He's got 19 in his last 3 games, 23 for Provorov, 23 shots in his last 4. And even if you do look at a defenseman's shooting percentage, and we can use Provorov specifically at about 6.5%. If we do some quick math here,
it's not the worst.
6.5% shooting percentage on 23 shots is 1.5 goals on 23 shots. I guess I'm just like, yeah, that's so. And he scored. This is not great radio here. Yeah, he scored 1 time. Anyway, the more shots Provorov puts on net, the better. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that a defenseman's shot, I would rather have 2 shots from a forward than 4 shots from a defenseman. And that's why I'm going to go with Kevin LeBanc. He's let me down pretty much every time I've chosen him in this game, but just give him that opportunity to let me down again, I think is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. You got to let him try again. I think I'm going to make it interesting for the Timmy's gang who are watching this, and I'm going to go Provorov, and we'll see. It's probably going to be LeBanc. But let's see what happens here.
Okay. And maybe it'll be Blake Lizotte. You never know. Or Pierre Engvall. It could truly be any of these guys, which is very frustrating. Morgan Riley, definitely, I'm glad you mentioned him. He had that 20-goal season, which was a total anomaly. It's not going to happen again, everybody. Morgan Riley's good. Yeah. He gets a lot of assists, but that's the end of it. For Morgan Riley's goal scoring. All right, and finally, pick number 3. So Ryan, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I'm going to. You shared with me before we came on that your day job. Why don't you tell them what do you do for a living?
Yeah, it's interesting, I suppose. I'm an opera singer, which is why my handle is Opera Downey. But obviously, during the pandemic, that is not happening because, at least in Ontario, where I know you are, Brian, nothing is happening. Nothing is allowed to happen for good reason. And so there's no stages, no theaters to be singing in. So what I do in the meantime is, a kind of a healthy mix of digital marketing and graphic design, etc. So I have a lot of time to kind of go into the numbers on some of these terrible, terrible picks. So that's kind of what I did. I just kind of went in on some of them.
We all appreciate that. You're clearly a man of many talents. So normally when you would be doing opera, would you be touring the country on a reasonably regular basis, or do you do most of your singing at home?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. I had a lot of stuff canceled because of the pandemic last year. I was supposed to be in Denver and Rochester and all these kind of fun places. And that's all kind of gone out the window. I spend a lot of time traveling Canada, Windsor, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Ottawa. Was supposed to be there this summer. Would have been nice to go to Ottawa this summer. I've never been. So that's kind of not great. But I have had the opportunity to see some of these players in action and as a result, and so that's a lot of fun too.
What's Canada's opera hotspot? Is there one? Is there one place where, like you mentioned Windsor? Is there like a thriving theater and opera community or appreciation community in Windsor?
The gigs I've had in Windsor are mostly with the symphony, and their symphony orchestra there is really quite good, and it's really well supported by the public there. I would say the opera hotspot, unfortunately, it's Toronto.
Yeah.
Just like kind of most
Oh.
things in this world, the city where all of the things are named the Canadian Opera Company or the National Theatre, etc. So that kind of and that's where I am. Not currently because I'm out in the country for the week, but Toronto is kind of where it is, and it's where I live. So.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. The faces I was making when you said Toronto, nothing personal to I just
No.
I get
Of course.
I think I don't know why I made them, to be honest. I was just like, well, why does Toronto get some to get to be this too? I was hoping like Moose Jaw or Saskatoon or like somewhere really unexpected had this, but obviously no. The answer is just Toronto. Okay. So
Both cities I've sung concerts in, Moose Jaw and Saskatoon. You're talking to a Newfoundlander who certainly doesn't like many places in the mainland, because of where I'm from. So I get it. I 100% get the Toronto dislike.
right,
I'll say.
right, and it's all it's all in good fun and love. So shout out to the six, everybody.
Of course.
Okay, let's dip into this third box. Can I? Is it? Tell me if this is gauche. Like, it's okay. I don't want to make you work for free. But, like, can you give us a sampling, maybe using the players in box 3? Is that asking a lot? You can tell me. I'll accept it.
I could maybe whip something out here. Let me just have a look at what I've prepared and what I can maybe set to some music here.
Okay.
You could say, Giordano is the pick. He has 3 goals in 7 games, 16 shots over the same. 1/3 of his output this year is against Vancouver. How about that?
That was amazing. That's the most entertaining Mark Giordano discussion I've ever had. Wow, we might have to have you on the show. We might have to give you a show script. We'll talk about commissioning an entire show of Keeping Karlsson.
It would be fun. What an honor.
Maybe we could release, maybe Short Shifts is doing their episode tomorrow, which is April 1st. And that just seems like perhaps a natural landing. Anyway, we'll talk. I don't think this is going to go anywhere, but I love that this one-time only exclusive performance happened on and for the Timmy's gang. So you mentioned so you're going with Mark Giordano. You already very artfully explained your reasons why. Is there any more to say about any other of these options? As I look down at my phone, I see, it's a wasteland. Like, it's usually a wasteland. Sometimes you're lucky to have 2 guys who are like, or at least like reasonably similar in terms of their likelihood of not hitting. But I don't even know.
Just a terrible forward, right? Just a terrible excuse. I mean, Nicolas Roy is like maybe sometimes fantasy relevant based on his like deployment if he like gets with on one of those, maybe even the third line with someone. But he's like the only forward, and he's bad. So with 1 goal all season, I wouldn't pick that guy. The only other thing you could even consider, and I looked at Goligoski, I looked at Myers, I looked at Classic, I looked at Morrissey, who might be the beast, still only got 1 goal all season. So I think you have to go with Giordano. As I said, he's got 1/3 of his output this year against Vancouver. So that's 2 goals out of 6, to be fair. It's a very small sample size. 3 goals in his last 7 games. I think Giordano's the pick. Even against Demko, maybe he shoots it and it goes in off of, Tyler Mott or something.
Yeah, maybe that's a good bet. What sadist comes up with these choices? Or masochist? Maybe it's a masochist. Like Ryan Graves. Like, I'm looking up these guys quickly.
Could be both.
Ryan Graves. I'm like, oh, well, like, he's someone who puts up some peripherals and has been involved in the offense sometimes. No goals this season. No goals in 33 games. So, oh yeah, let's put him in box 3. There are other guys with 1 or 2 goals that I'm sure they could have throwing us a bone. So yeah, I am Dr. Giordano. Was it yesterday on the Timmy's gang, just in the reasons you him. He's back on the top power play. And, he does play for Calgary, who we libeled and slandered earlier in the show. But in the absence of any other reasonable option, I think this is who I'm going with. So that makes my final card here. Nazem Kadri, Kevin Labanc, and Mark Giordano. And
Yeah, I went with Kadri, Provorov, and Giordano, and I'm going to hit submit picks right now. You're watching me do it.
Yeah, let's do this together so neither of us fall victim to the...
I'm sure you're doing it too, so we don't lose our picks.
And, uh-oh.
On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm in. It's there. It's locked in. Yep. Now, I don't blame anyone for waiting Flyer, Sabre, Maple Leaf, or Jet. Steve Miller, although he might even be too good for the Timmy's hockey challenge.
That's true. That's true. A reroll wouldn't be a bad option. Like, we didn't pick any Jets or Sabres. I didn't even come close. So you might as well go for the reroll. And like you said, maybe see if JT Miller pops up there. I think Brock Besser was there once. I mean, I can't be sure. Yeah, I don't think your options
that would be
in box 1 will be much worse though than what they are right now. So worth a shot. Good luck if you reroll. Let us know in the comments who you went with and what kind of streak you're on and what your strategy is. If you have any other tips to share. I, again, am Brian Com of Keeping Karlsson. If you liked what you heard, head on over to keepingkarlsson.com and you will see all of the multiple podcasts that we put out, including the Stream Scheme with last episode of Timmy Gang's special guest Ben Burnett hosting with Louis Ezekiel, giving you all your fantasy news and notes that are coming up through midweek for you to stay on top of keeping your fantasy team as competitive as possible and in your championship drive as we head towards the playoffs. And on Sundays, we have the big show. And Ryan, you referenced DUE a whole bunch of times, which is Dave Betton's metric, gambler's fallacy metric for a season for so long. And we would have expected him to. And you can find the links to all of those shows over at keepingkarlsson.com. Like and subscribe. Just said it now. Ryan, thank you so much for being such a game and capable and very prepared guest on the Timmy's Gang. I wish you the best of luck tonight. And do you have any parting words for our audience?
Thanks, Brian. It was a real pleasure to talk to you today. Yeah, just check out Keeping Karlsson Short Shifts launched today. They had some discussion, a little outdated because of the waiver stuff, but still some great conversation there. Check it out. It should be on your feed now.
All right. Thanks for that, Ryan. And before we go, I think I'll make a habit of doing, we have some questions in the chat. So I've got, okay, you've got a question, Ryan, from Sir Fonty. Do opera singers look down on musical theater?
Oh, wow. If they're jerks, they do. Yeah. If they're jerks, they do. Fortunately, I like to think I'm not a jerk. And I would like to be paid to sing, even if it's musical theater or opera. So, hey, if anyone's out there and they're hiring,
all right, yeah, that's nice. What a nice answer. I'm sure there's like little battles in the different niches of the theater community, but you're right, you're all stronger together. So way to stick with your musical theater compatriots. And then Kevin points out, Kevin mentioned #Godet. I guess he was a third box choice that I didn't even, or second. I don't even know what box he was in. Kevin, was he in a box today? I'm pretty sure I saw him yesterday. But Kevin's also mentioning that the Vancouver-Calgary game could be a COVID postponement, which is more reason.
He was in there. Isn't he hurt? Isn't he like something?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I could find out. I'm just like so not, sorry, I'm not up on my latest Adam Godet news. Apologies to anybody who's in. That's the way you could score. Maybe I should know about Tim's hockey challenge. But Kevin also mentioned that we have like this weird COVID situation. He's mentioning Godet because Godet is the one who tested positive, and he was pulled. I don't understand this. Look, COVID talk is. Yeah. There was a This American Life episode a few years ago where they had one of the hosts or producers' moms on. And the mom had this rule about conversations. and it was there are 7 conversations that should be banned, that nobody ever wants to engage in. And so if you want to be part of a good conversation, you should never, ever speak on the following, I think it was 7 topics. And the one that really stuck out to me that I still remember is, because it's the one that I guess I connected to the most at the time, was route conversations, like ROUTE, route, like the way you traveled to either the outing that you're at or the way you commute to work, like what buses you take or traffic reports. And it's like, I totally agree. Nobody wants to hear that. And I think the eighth one, if I could add one right now, would be the COVID stuff. I mean, like, we all know it's there. I feel like we all follow it to the extent we want to follow it. And the rest, like, we're all so in control of our COVID news intake. So I do think it's strange. On that note, I will mention that he took a test, practiced with the team. The test was positive, and then he left practice. Isn't that true? So shouldn't he have just waited for the results before being essentially a close contact with the rest of his team, who will now be a close contact with the team they play?